Great. I think people are coming in, so maybe give a little bit, 2 minutes, wait.
Yeah, I think we can start from like 35.
Cool. But anyways, I'm going to just start with a short summary or somewhere basically an introduction of what today's event is about. Yeah. And so today's event, including the yesterday, is a 2 days event. We are doing a symposium and SuperCrit. It's a following event from the social algorithms visiting AA visiting school workshop that held in July. And this is because during the workshop, everybody's very busy to produce and teach and learn. So there were not much time to gather together and share our thoughts and digest each other's brief and productions. So this is a chance for us to open up a platform for everybody, and including students, to come up and share and observe what other units have been done and what other tutors are thinking. And we share our thoughts and exchange our knowledge. Yeah. So I hope today, I'm very excited about today because I also couldn't catch up every single project or every single thing from the workshop. So this is a chance for us to, also for me to catch up and see everybody's work. Yeah, and kind of digest it. All right, so this event has been 2 days. Yesterday, the old social algorithms members have been presenting and discussing, and today is our new incoming tutors, which who taught in the summer, will be presenting together with their students. Yeah, and then we will have some Q&As and discussions. I'm very excited about that. So before that, maybe just briefly talk about or introduce what social algorithm is. It's a research group. It's a voluntarily evolved research group, kind of composed by a bunch of AA graduates, and we are basically started from the AA graduates, and this program became a visiting school program hosted by Yonsei University and by the bunch of people who are interested in certain research agenda. And from this year, from actually last year, we started to invite more openly, to invite more people to get involved and teach, rather than only focused in AA network. Yeah. But by the way, AA Visiting School is a quite well-known program from AA. It's a remote global programs, and we are one of it. And our workshop series has been conducted for already over several years, and we consider until 2018, we consider it as a phase 1. And the group of people that I will introduce in a bit, who have been really testing their ideas and sharing knowledge. And from phase 2 onwards, we decided to open up our platform to invite other people to teach, so we can kind of expand our knowledge, so we are not trapped in just our bubbles. Yeah, so the first bubbles. These groups are Jun, Jin-seok Park, and Jaewon Lee, Seung-ah Choi, myself, Sumin Ham, Tae-sung Lee, and Han-jun Kim. And yesterday, we have presented our work and exchanged our different agenda. And we had really interesting discussions, and our recorded discussions, and the whole day's recording will be available on our YouTube channel. So if you are interested in, please go have a look. Yeah. And today we are gonna be more focusing on the new ideas and the fresh projects. Yeah. But yesterday we had June presented her really interesting projects, including the direct action projects with students. We had Jaewon and Jin-seok presented what they did over the few years of social algorithms workshop, how they taught in their unit 1. And we, myself, I introduced unit 2, and Sang-hyun, I invited Sang-hyun to also present his really interesting recent project from SciArc. And we had Tae-sung presented his work about the kind and degree, which has been also really interesting. There were very interesting topics in discussions, and we also talked about the pedagogy about this workshop series itself. Yeah, and continuing that, today we are going to focus on the phase 2, but especially the 2021 version of social algorithms. In 2019, we started the invitation process. We invited interesting professors and researchers to present their work and teach us some technical tools that we don't know. And then on 2020, we run 4 different units similar to this year by different expertise in different fields, which has been very, very informative. And that led to also after workshop exhibitions and so on. And this year, I'm very excited to see what you guys will present, the students and the tutors. And I'm proudly introducing all our heroes of this year from Unit 1, James, Jongwon, and Jakyung, and Unit 2, Jaehyuk, Nayoung, and Heejun, Unit 3, Lower and Case, Unit 4, Lloyd, Seung-ah, Hanjun, and Dongyun. So yeah, they will introduce themselves later, of course. Yeah, and you will get to see more in detail. And yeah, that was what we did over the around, what is this, like 9 days of time. Yeah, it was very intensive, very focused. We still had like midterm or final, but we didn't have too much chance to really exchange. So this is a perfect time for us to catch up. We also had a lot of participants. Yeah, really great amount of energy was put in those 9 days. So thank you for everybody who participated and who taught and assisted. And I'm going to use a little bit of time to play a video that only the tutors, when we met prior to the workshop starting, and we have been introducing each other's agenda a little bit. So it will be probably a little bit overlapping with what tutors will be presenting today, but it could be an interesting comparison how the unknown parts when they're presenting at that time is much more clarified or still unknown. So let's watch. Please let me know if you cannot hear.
So we were gonna
Engagement, sorry.
introduce really
Here.
briefly about our brief. And our unit is interested
Can you hear?
in bigness. And bigness is not only about the volume of the building, but also about
Can you hear
the
the sound?
gathering itself.
Okay.
Gathering represent the specific rituals and the power as well. And this architecture contains social demands and human desire without. Today, when the gathering is forbidden and the bigness collapsed, we thought this is the right moment to discuss about this discourse. In our point of view, switching the form of gathering can be a way to find the role of the architect in post-COVID world. Form of gathering, what we're gonna discuss is a single big room, is non-contextual architecture, which means the architecture of a form. It is not about the composition or configuration of space. What you're trying to get through the shape of the architecture is understanding the rituals and certain activities in this space, and develop and propose a new form that can reflect the post-COVID world. So what we suggest is participants will choose one typology of megastructure and list and analysis the unique form of the existing giant architecture. And there is a sample list of typology. For example, in the case of cathedral, the unique shape will be the cross-shaped plan with high floor height. This cross plan creates the stage and the seats and certain direction of the space. So way of gathering in cathedral and the stadium is totally different. And after researching this process, students will rearrange this characteristic into the social situation of Seoul and these days, and will propose a new very strong architecture project. In this process, what you're gonna produce is a single drawing that represents the core idea of the project. We want students to treat the drawing as a language of architecture, which means using a minimized medium to claim their own idea. And through hyper realistic collage image, we want to strengthen the idea with paradox between unrealized imagination and the situation of Seoul today. And we're developing the methodology now, so maybe we can discuss a little bit more later together. Thank you.
Thank you. If anyone doesn't have any question, we can move on to unit 3.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, please go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. No, are we having a discussion later together, or are we okay? Well, then we can wait.
Yeah, later together. Yeah.
If you have specific question to this team, you can ask
Yeah,
now.
of course.
Or we can discuss it. Yeah, let's move on.
Okay. 1 second.
교수님 혹시 제가 빌릴 수 있는 노트북이 한 대 있을까요? 제가 USB만 들고 와가지고.
All my notes. Okay, so hide. The overarching goal of the workshop is to use technical research and intelligent agents through scripting to analyze and mutate city infrastructure systems within a defined city area, and then design some type of simulation adaptation of that system that interacts with the area across multiple scales. The proposed workshop is split into 2 sections, a research portion and then a production portion. Of course, it's not going to let me click to the next one. So we're going to present on like multiple citywide infrastructural systems, and then workshop students or groups will then choose one or some type of multiple that might connect, research the various components, inner workings, and needs of that system.
Am I up? All right. Essentially what we like to do in the first portion is to help students kind of wrap their heads around multi-scalar future infrastructure systems and related to multiple touch points. And those touch points are a narrative workflow that can take you through not only human agents, basically breaking down different types of users within the system and the material resources and design constraints that actually affect how you deploy multiple touch points inside the city system. What that can look like is looking at where infrastructure systems touch in relationship to power, water, waste, but more specifically in terms of how data and different types of edge network architecture systems are shared to govern future infrastructure systems. What we'd like to do though is like kind of look, the reason we call it the grid and the island is because we like to look at the kind of rising, I don't know, the word I'm looking for here is probably interest in circular systems, decentralized energy systems, decentralized water systems within larger city structures, and to understand how you develop grid systems to optimize at scale as we look at growing population and usage metrics. So if we go to the next slide, these kinds of diagrammatic walkthroughs can be deployed across multiple types of infrastructure systems, from freight, transport, all the way up to futures of medical infrastructure and manufacturing, which all kind of feed into these small microgrid systems that we will try to develop inside the city and then show the relationship to the larger context. And we're going to do that through, next slide, data. These are some tools that me and Laura have been building to help us understand multiple variable calculations for simulation creation. We'll probably deploy these tools, pre-built tools, and then help the students gather specific data to their site or to their particular interest. These data sets that we designed can be political in nature or purely material, depending on the student's interest. That's the end of my portion.
So then basically it's like an understanding of the infrastructural system, the math and like technical understanding of how that works and fits within the city. And those kind of components and constraints inform the code that would help then simulate or adapt and mutate the system to fit the city site. And yeah, so it's using Grasshopper, C# and intelligent agents. And then as for the expected outcome, each project will have an understanding of how to research these kinds of technical systems and design, technical drawings and diagrams that illustrate these research ideas and how to translate that into a project, as well as just some finished drawings. We're playing with the idea of possibly adding animations to that, but that might depend on the students and their interests as well. So that's it.
Thank you. And any questions so far? Or Unifor? Roy?
So our unit is called Sabotage, Untypical Encounter. And the unit is basically about denying the perceived linearity in architectural evolution. through the means of mutation. So we kind of start with this general statement that kind of explains the whole idea. So it starts with the Crystal Palace as the starting point of modern architecture, and and if you kind of observe this plan, it also it shows the spectacle of the great exhibition that the Crystal Palace actually exhibited, but also Crystal Palace itself as architecture fell into the spectacle as well. And there is a kind of narrative that started around the same time in the society, which is this theory of evolution. But the perceived theory at the time was this idea of linearity. So it kind of started necessarily from like an inferior being to a superior being. And it was actually reflected onto their plans of the exhibition as well, starting from what they perceived as the cradle of their civilization to more developed states, such as the US and the UK. And this kind of idea is very much embedded into the era, and it also put architecture into this interpretation as well, which is kind of putting this this maximum utility, flexible space at the end of the timeline for architectural evolution. After that came reinforced concrete by Joseph Monnier. These are just different kind of patents that he filed. And then, sorry. Oh. And then the first reinforced concrete building, and then Domina House, and then other societal kind of circumstances like the Great War. It kind of all contributed to this widespread of much needed kind of spread of this modern architecture, which had like a very specific agenda of maximizing flexible utilitarian space, which is reflected again upon Seagram building, XYZ building, and finally by the non-stop city by Super Studio. And it kind of gives birth to this, what we call the typical architecture. So there's this Swiss photographer, Roger Eberhard. He goes around 32 cities, in 32 different countries, and he photographed the bedroom and then the site towards the city. And he kind of says in the interview that it kind of became, you know, very real, that he was not able to distinguish one city from the other, because these basically what we call the typical architecture took over the city. So these are just like images of what we kind of see as the baseline of the typical architecture. So what we're trying to do is kind of denying this almost technologically bound idea of linearity in the process, in the progress of architectural evolution, and maybe trying to benefit from more of a Darwinian approach. So it kind of like so a species starts and then has like multiple mutations, multiple kind of trees, and then it develops into more different branches. And according to the circumstances, basically the most suitable one will survive. So the survival of the fittest. And we thought that the architecture could basically employ this idea as well. So we'll start, so the workshop will have threefold agenda. So the first we'll start by research, and so the research will start by kind of defining the idea of typical architecture and traditional architecture, and how we would kind of go from there. Sorry. So basically, in the beginning, we'll define what we would like to call the typical architecture and the traditional architecture, and we want to kind of hybridize them together through the second stage, and then create an outcome for the third stage. Yeah.
So, well, actually, I think Lloyd already covered about. So basically, we are thinking about using the CycleGAN to just thinking about the how can we mutate the current and the traditional architecture plans. So next. So yeah, I think this is the traditional Korean traditional house, which is called the Hanok plan. So maybe we are using this as a styler, and then next. And then we're thinking about the input this current apartment, very typical apartment plans to use as input the data. So maybe, yeah, we're thinking about here, we can, next. Okay, and then in the same time, and next, please. So the students will be asked to analyze all the plans to have to figure out each components very easily. So maybe we can use this data to training the trains. And then yeah, next please. So next. So in the end, yeah, we can expect what can be the mutation in between the current and the traditional plans. And of course, next. We try to get lots of document the catalogings for the midterm. So and then they will be asked to select some meaningful outputs. And next. Yeah, Lloyd.
Yeah. So what we would like to do is essentially using CycleGAN create some kind of hybridization between traditional and the typical architecture, create a bunch of catalog and kind of give students different scenarios to work with. So if we give them, say, a natural disaster, a socioeconomic change, and catastrophe, they'll choose different kind of plans to work with, and they'll essentially develop these a few designs and one final design in detail, and then our goal is to kind of create a final an axonometric kind drawing. Yeah.
Okay, so can you hear me? Yeah, there was all the other units were presenting their own brief. We will follow up with unit 1 already. So it's okay to, yeah, so okay. Also, these are available on our YouTube channel. If you want, I can share this link on the chat in a bit, and yeah, you can follow us on the Instagram and Facebook. Anyways, I'm going to pass the mic to our unit 1. Yeah. So I hope that gave you a bit of an overview. Yeah, but yeah, unit 1, please.
Hi, are you not showing ours? Zoom in.
Yours were not recorded because there was a confidentiality issue, so you requested us not to record.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry, obviously didn't remember. So that means we have to present. And thank you very much for having us. I mean, should we introduce ourselves, Jimin, or how should we do it?
Yeah, please. Yeah, briefly. Yeah.
Okay. I think Ja might be still driving, unless I'm mistaken. So, okay. I mean, NA, do you want to introduce yourself first?
Yeah, sure. Hi, I am Chungwon, and James and I am now based in London. We taught together with Ja Unit 1. And we had 10 students in our unit, Chunkyu, Minji, who are with us today. And yes, well, I'm an architect in London, and based in London. I mean, I don't know, I mean, I wasn't prepared for this speech. So yes, nice meeting you all.
Yeah, I mean, nothing is prepared from our side. Please apologize for like, you know, the non-preparedness because it's really late.
No
and-
problem.
Yeah. Yeah. Hi, my name is James Kwang-ho Chung. I practice architecture also in London, and I teach at the Architectural Association diploma program, and I also teach at the Royal College of Art. And yeah, so maybe I can share the screen to explain what we've done for the visiting school. Whoa, sorry, that's my note. That's how much I'm prepared. Sorry. Can you all see the full screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, so hello everyone. So we are Unit 1, and the title of our brief is called A Chosen Mutation. And we'll try to unravel what the ideas behind it. So we looked into typology. I think our previous researches before we gathered as a unit were already very much typology research oriented. And when I say typology, I mean it by the science of types. And so basically on trying to understand how architecture contributed in typal production. So yeah, there are many agents who are actually involved in designing architecture, and what we mainly question is the ethical issues of actually diagrammatizing or following a very specific regimes of plan vision of the initiating body or the governing power of the project, and which actually end up constructing a very specific agenda and value system, which we tend to absorb subconsciously in many cases. And these are usually executed by the powerful institutions. And when I say power, it the power that enables to get others to do what they want. So it actually generates specific sets of desire even. So like we have very skeptical lens of viewing the world and viewing the architecture and trying to deconstruct how we actually manage to end up with certain conditions and the value system. And the real danger in this, setting up and generating, sets of desire is that also represents to a degree that powerful institutions can monopolize a claim to meaning, even meaning of life, for instance. So yeah, I mean, to put it in a really simple way, how values gets constructed over time subconsciously through constructing typologies, architectural typologies, and us inhabiting within that spatial realm, and so we question the society and the social values behind architecture. And we observe mutation, and especially the Seoul's one because it's Seoul visiting school, and a lot of people can actually pick up very interesting observation and like a new tools that's actually arising at site every day from very banal practices that comes out from the like typologies or typal productions. And when we use the word mutation, what we mean is that actually the idea behind was that when scientists first discovered the mutation, it already completely discarded the existing sets of belief of very destined path of a specific species. And it turns out that a lot of there is no such thing for a species to be something or end up with something, or to behave, or to be confined in certain way. However, it's very transgressional, and one species turning into another and adapting to situations and environment. It's basically just living through life, and there and kind of I don't know, negating the given path of how one or it should live was the most interesting aspect of the mutation, because mutation is a biological transgression, but it's also partly accidental slippage. I would like to call it. And sometimes there are no meaning why mutative parts actually appears to be to contain certain features or end up in certain way. So but obviously it has its own logic of surviving, but that's not what we are actually interested when we introduce the word mutation. We just want to explore opportunities, or any kind of experimentation that just comes out from the city through our observation, and whether a lot of people can actually use these mutative experimentation of life can be accessed to confront their own situation, and question whether it offers any alternative forms of living. I think that's what the power of mutation is, because it already kind of supersedes and negates the previous forms of life, by constantly mutating and constantly practicing, constantly just living. So, but this is a bit of a contradiction to what I say, because we obviously, as an observation, we accept all types of or all kinds of mutation, whether it's a chosen one, not chosen one, accidental ones, like as long as we see the opportunity. But what's actually important is that questioning ourselves whether we are mindlessly following certain sets of values, or the hierarchical of values, hierarchy of value systems that's already been set for us, and whether the mutation that's it may seem very different from our previous forms of life, but it's still very questionable whether certain things are being repeated in a really bad way. as in, when I say bad, whether it actually enhances the typo production through constructing typologies, and whether it's actually chosen, not given the destined path of mutations, because certain mutations can be, controlled. A lot, in many cases, actually is influenced by certain agenda, even the biological ones. So yeah, I mean, this is our favorite quote from Preciado, from a forced mutation to a chosen mutation. What it means to actually take that path and to be aware of our social settings and the environmental spatial settings. And this is basically the path that we've been taken with our student through Miro, that we've been communicating digitally and giving feedbacks every day to construct certain sets. So our methodology was to get inspired from the reading. Firstly, choosing a specific typology, such as, I mean, in this case, Pyeonijom, but any related articles or given seminar readings that we've assigned to students, and they record what they've learned. And for example, this is a essay from Maria Giudici that we've given to students. This is an observation about Goshiwon. And I think it's either same or different essay. But I mean, explaining like Henry Roberts' type generation through nuclear family apartment, but comparing it to the Korean context. And the second sets of exercise was to construct the atlas image. So students actually went to site physically, because they were all based in Korea. So I think in most cases. And in this case, a student actually explored the exterior and interior of the Pyeonijom, and a student looked at the sangha and all utility elements that can be that's actually quite generic, but then this genericness allows a lot of flexibility, and not really containing, I mean, has the possibility to contain multiple ideologies, therefore like non-ideology. And another student looking at the kiosk with skeptical eyes of whether it's related to certain agendas of the government or the markets, and how it also contains either simply life and allows different things to happen in the middle of the street where it's not really supposed to have these kind of programs. And as a final set, student actually compose a new image, and as if it's a hint of their the partial view of their proposal. So in this case, a student who observed the sangha, being this mutant creature that's actually flexible enough to accommodate different needs of the space, and it will constantly change, and has been. And a student who looked at Pyeonijom and how it can be actually paired with very intimate parts of our living, such as like sleeping, and because it's already can be understood as like a version of exploded house. and so is the exterior actually being ambiguously being used as their part of house. So yeah, I think we'll stop there for giving example and introduce our invited students for the Supercrit. So it's Junkyu and Minji who are joining us. Thank you very much for joining us. Yeah, I mean, unless NA, you would like to add up.
No, I just
before we
wanted
move
to
on.
add on that Ja just joined us in the force. So probably it's better that she just greet us before we start student presentation briefly, if that's okay with you, Ja.
Sorry for late. Yeah, I'm Ja. We have two students waiting for their presentation, so I have to do very quick introduce myself. I'm Ja, I'm based on Seoul. I run a very small practice which is on the project. So, and also we did the visiting school, AA visiting school last summer. So we really enjoyed. So, okay, that's it. So are you ready, Jungyu?
Yes, I'm ready. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yes.
Can you guys see this script? Okay, hi, I'm
Yes.
Junkyu Park from Unit 1. And I wanted to look at what created our street landscape through this project. And I thought that the combination of infrastructure and industrial products create the landscape of our daily lives. On the first day of the project, I took a walk around the neighborhood without exact intention. I followed what I could see: handle stores, mailboxes, gas pipes, vending machine, abandoned chairs, hanging cans. And it was such a familiar scene. And no matter what the scene was filmed, it was clearly Korea. So I wondered, when and where did this familiar landscape come from? So this picture on the left is Myeongdong in the early 1980s. There are some familiar scenes, but they are quite different from now on. There are many places where roadways and pedestrian paths are not clearly separated, and urban infrastructure is small or different in shape. The picture on the right is a little more familiar. This is Myeongdong in the late 1980s, just before the 1980 Seoul Olympics. So the Korea, especially Seoul, has changed a lot at once with the Asian Games and the Seoul Olympics in the mid-80s. Most of urban infrastructure and repetitive industrial products we see in our daily lives today were made during that period. New infrastructure and materials design and layout of industrial products have changed the landscape of Seoul. I thought that the certain infrastructure and repetitive industrial products were creating a type of street in Korea, and I saw the two were closely related. So first, I wanted to typify their close relationship. This is my atlas image, and I believe this atlas image are familiar for Korean. Observations show that they are gathered in a particular way. The picture on the left is combined with vertical infrastructure, such as vertical bars, telephone poles, signs, and street trees. And the picture on the right is supported by horizontal infrastructure, such as fence, electricity boxes, and equipment boxes. If it is replaced with architectural elements, it could be recognized as column and walls. The method of coupling is read as solidarity gathering around on the left and the support prop on the right. The first on the left, it is either racked or gathered around a column. You can see dustpan, broomstick, a chair or table, and wheelbarrow needed for labor. Most of them are repetitive industrial products, and many are racked into infrastructure. Perhaps the infrastructure was read as safe support for them. The right side is usually a wall supporting things, or a backrest of a chair, or hanging out laundry or putting up signs. It was also interesting that most stores were building spaces with fence as their base of support, because the fence has never been made for it. I found their relationship interesting, and I believe this combination supports many people's daily lives. At the same time, I know some people are uncomfortable with their solidarity, whether it's messy or disturbing. So I wanted to tell some joke. As you can see in this previous Atlas image, the industrial goods on the streets are not randomly dispersed or as we might have expected. They are gathered together in search of more stable and stronger places. Then I thought about this. Maybe they thought we could put it here. So what about over there? I walked around the house with a small chair and bicycle locks and connected them to various infrastructures. I also took them to public telephone booths, squares, bus stops, fence, telephone poles, and handrails in scenic areas. And I hung up a chair. Is that illegal? Is that gonna pay a fine? I looked up various law and regulations. According to Korean law, a person who occupied the road without permission and a person who left things on the road that could interfere with traffic are subject to illegalities. So is that reader chair I'm hanging on illegal or legal? This was my joke. I know that I have to come to conclusion, so, or nevertheless, let's look at this picture. It's difficult to explain a clear link, but I believe this image has more power than I'm trying to explain. The man is sitting on a chair. The bench is taped by government action. He's not sitting there to commit illegality, to break the rules. He's sitting there because he needed, psychologically or physically. So this picture makes us think like this. Someone said, why is he sitting there? Isn't he not supposed to sit here? Or someone else said, they have nowhere to go, it's such a problem. So let's look back to the scene we looked at earlier. We usually look at the object drawn on the road and feel uncomfortable, try to argue whether it is legal, illegal, or just look at them as a sin, just like I did. But the objects are not just a physical object. What I could see while working on this project is that all of those things are someone's daily life. That's why the subtitle of my project is Daily Cityscape of Seoul. The term daily cityscape is not the only landscape that we see on a daily basis, but also a cityscape created by individual use. Perhaps the Korean-style urban landscape is the daily life of someone who coexists with the system while not complying with the system. Thank you for listening.
We don't actually, Sumin, if you could help us with the format. Like we don't know how it's been structured, so we go by one student by student, or
Yeah, I think we can go both student, and then after that we can discuss about like
Yeah,
intermediate and
however you wanna occupy this 1 hour, it's all up to you. Yeah.
actually,
all
yeah, it's true. Yeah. It's totally up to you.
Do we have, let's say, from now on, half an hour for our session? Because I think it's better to discuss with one student's work,
I see.
rather
Okay,
than
if you
just two in
want to do
total.
that.
But depends how much we have left for us.
30
it's
minutes.
30 minutes from, okay.
are we also allowed to participate, or only students can actually?
No, you can. Yeah, it's all up to you. It's a very free format. Yeah, do whatever you want.
Okay,
Whatever you think
let's.
is beneficial.
I mean, let's hear what critics would say. Yeah. Thank you
Do you
very
want
much.
feedback for our
thank you.
students?
I think that's what I understood.
Yeah.
Are you going
Yeah,
to have more
sure.
students presenting?
Yeah, we have one more student.
We have
Oh,
one more
one more.
student, but she will present after 10 minutes, after the discussion.
Okay, so you want feedback for 10 minutes? Okay. Yeah. So maybe can I ask you, Jungyu, I think I was already quite amazed about your work already from the final. Have you ever thought about or have you developed this after workshop or anyhow, or any of your learnings affected your study or your other projects?
I didn't do another work for the complete format, but after this, when I walked street, I took many photos like this. So yeah, that's interesting. And I have many different photos in the street. Is really mutation or something like different. So, but I didn't make them to make work. Yeah.
Just wondering that the like if you're going to develop like just this project like after this, like for example, I mean, I know that maybe you couldn't, but like just wondering if you're going to develop this project and what you can imagine, like what you can imagine the next work of this.
I'm not sure I will make a project or keep going or develop, but I can sure I will take more photos, and I want to archive of them photos, and not only me. I want to find other people who take photo like me. So yeah, I'm not sure to develop this project, but I can tell I want to archive more photos like these scenes. So.
Yeah, I remember when we had some conversation in the final, you were kind of saying this exercise was really helpful for you because you normally don't observe the streets and the world like this, yeah? But really this exercise changed the way you observe and learn about the surroundings, yeah? So I think that's already a very good takeaway of it, and I'm curious maybe if any of those ways of observation or researching, maybe do you have any example that have affected your work somehow? I'm just curious. Yeah.
Not yet, but it
Okay.
maybe, it will be maybe.
Yeah,
I can show.
sounds good. Cool, maybe, yeah.
Maybe, I mean, I don't want to say too much because it's all other participant sessions today, but I missed my chance to, first of all, thank Chungyu because I was really impressed by his work and his way of seeing. And I just wanted to say, I think it was Thursday that we had a meeting about the individual works, and then we were all really impressed by what he came to us with. He had like tens and tens of photos that he had made for about like in a half day. What I found interesting was all these small matters in this project could be a really long time-lasting research project. I mean, I was really interested in his interest on the actual stainless steel infrastructure, which is totally about Korean modern infrastructural movement and totally made the difference and changes in the manufacturing industry in the city, and which actually became a dominant element that exists in our sceneries, in our cities nowadays. I mean, for me, there was another reflection of Korean history for me, which is quite mundane, but also really we're quite used to. And the way that he observed how individual takes this as their own way of tools for their everyday life, for me, there was just, it was quite clear. And the final photo, I mean, I was looking at your final photo, Chungyu, that the old man was sitting on that bench. And I actually thought again that somehow the way you describe it, that let's say there is a kind of fence that says it's illegal to do anything here, and the man just using it in his own purpose. I think that is already what we were looking for as an attitude or as an opportunity as an architect to find the way to appropriate, or maybe the way to use what's given as a chance for any kind of proposal when we design. So in a way, as a kind of attitude as an author or as an architect, I think it already tells what should be a way to approach when you do, different project, and the way to understand it. It's basically, as James briefly described with our brief, is to find a way to get to understand what's around us and also tackle it, and then just find a way to appropriate it as for a tool for finding new forms of living or new forms of using. For me, I wasn't really sure about this way of understanding when I saw this a couple months ago, but I'm looking at it again, and I found I kind of get more of your intention when you chose this, say, shot as your final finale of the project presentation.
Maybe I can contribute into what NA is already kind of describing, but also, is it okay, NA, to just jump in?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a bit of a critique at the same time. because I think it's all great. The observation's great, and I really like the last part, how you described the, you know, perhaps our daily landscape or the street image of the street is not, you know, your experience only, but it's actually constructed by many people's life, memory, and value set. I agree to a degree, and you know, also disagree, because clearly, you know, how you are introducing the, you know, birth of the street or birth of the, you know, car, road, and, you know, pedestrian system, and our behavioral system that we had to kind of submit into is actually not really constructed by, you know, many other people's life, but is actually constructed by probably one governing agency. And obviously, you know, the word infrastructure was used in a really appropriate manner, because, you know, it takes the command of economy. You know, it's obviously was there to amplify and actually incorporate the efficiency of the city and logistics. And of course, it contains the command of the politics, because, you know, you're supposed to behave in a certain way, and, you know, otherwise you'll get into trouble. And of course, it's a command of culture, which is actually quite debatable, because of this, you know, appropriation part and, you know, tightness to the condition of the street, which was not the street as it is. So, I mean, I think we have to kind of clarify when we say, you know, first of all, the word infrastructure, you know, maybe it's actually describing the street, because infrastructure it just implies so many different things, because pretty much anything is infrastructural, as if the architectural apparatus, spatial apparatus serves a very specific structure with an agenda that's not really created by yourself. So I think I'll be more cautious of using that word, but I think also I really commend you for sharp observation that our subjectivity, in a way, is a anamorphic projection of the city. We internalize city's command, and that's how we actually perceive how, you know, what the street should look like and how we should behave. However, this mutations that just, you know, exceeds and flows on the street completely negates this conception at the same time. So it's embracing this, you know, contradiction or like two conflicting condition, therefore not fully absorbing the command of politics or the economy is very interesting. So yeah, well done. Okay, I mean, since
yes.
yeah, okay.
Okay, I want to add one more things for the project. Actually, I also enjoyed this project again. Thank you for the sharing for today. So what I want to say is the quality of those type of project, I think, is need to be done with a very thoughtful insight rather than just observation, I think. So even when your last pages or last image is delivered what you have thought with some kind of your stance, which is I like it. But I think I totally agree with James and NA, because you rather too deeply look at more about system or more about some little bit more deeper research, because why they have those type of landscapes are produced on the street. So by looking at those things, maybe you will have a different, maybe I think, perspective later on, or some much more in details, sophisticated I think explanation for your project. So in a way, I strongly recommend to produce maybe some kind of visionary or optional kind of architectural proposal or landscape proposal and street view proposal. Now, I think out of 1 year done so far. Then I think by doing that, I think you're gonna get more I think initial or some I don't know, essential understanding of the street.
Yeah.
No, go ahead. Yeah.
No. I was gonna say, I mean, I totally agree, because the one of the moment that I was super fascinated to hear was when Jungu was talking about his interview with the stainless steel manufacturers and suppliers. I mean, Uchido, was it Uchido or I don't remember.
Yes.
I mean, it's definitely, yes. I mean, I think the sharper research and sharper, let's say, digging into actual materials, for now, let's say, if it is only about showing what's given and what we find on them in the street, getting to know how this had been gone through and then how it's been led to this, in terms of many different architectural and industrial stories behind it, I think it definitely gives you a better and also accurate visions and views towards these ideas and these topics. And I think, I mean, of course, I don't know what's your plan about this project, but if I were you, I would definitely be interested in doing some more work and production as well as research, so that it becomes quite, let's say, completed, or not completed, let's say, more developed work and or interests or activities of your own. But yeah.
The reason why I recommend the look at the more street here, because street in the Korea in Seoul very interesting as a looking, but it didn't have a much more powerful or more density compared to Vietnam or China. You know, if you look at if you go to the Vietnam or Shanghai, Ho Chi Minh, there are lots of the street vendors, lots of things on the ground, but it's difficult to compare. But so it's having different quality, but something there. But it's difficult to say it is very strong density things, you know. So in a way, by founding what is essential of those tiny things all together, you have to have a very specific or some kind of observation with very deep research. For instance, like economic research, social research, or some political research, etc. So it makes your project much more unique, I think.
I mean, I love the comment from Jaewon because it really questions about what we are really naturally drawn to or what we naturally assume. But at the same time, I mean, if we had more time, I would love to have more debates about visions, you know, like, or the planning, because, you know, all of his observation, like Jungi's observation, completely, you know, like make our visions like almost useless. So, I mean, what would be the, you know, like interesting alternative practicing of architecture? I mean, I think that's worth the discussion if we have more time. But unfortunately, we have to move on to the next student. So Minji, if you could present next, please.
Thank you for your comments.
Hi everyone, my name is Minji from Unit 1. The typology that I'm going to talk about is the subway. I'm talking about how the functions of subway changed over time, which typologically read as just an infrastructure before. Subway had a clear functions as typologically. Transportation, especially the subway, has features which are fast without any traffic congestion, and informative screens, escalators, line maps, signs that show where to get out, and different colors by the lines are support that speedy system. And all of them exist to provide more logistical infrastructure to people efficiently. Public spaces are fundamental elements of the city, but currently, especially in Seoul, public spaces are insufficient that compared with people who live and work in the city. So unused and misused spaces in subway is targeted for public spaces. Because of the best accessibility, these spaces are stuffed with not only the public spaces, but also the commercial spaces. It makes subway serve different structure, not just only focusing on efficiency. So subway becoming less logistical. So now it has an appearance with exceeding the original functions. Stores, cafes, indoor green spaces, exhibitions, columns that wrapped with advertisement, even the metro farms and metro libraries are now coexistent with the original functions. These mutated spaces are encountered with majority of people for the characteristics of the public spaces. In many cases, these facilities are with colored and bright lights that emphasize the space, which can grab the pedestrian's attention. Those crowded public spaces are the best site to casually show that we're keeping up with social trends, which are act as a soft propaganda. It also means that often seemed empty spaces has possibilities for the next propaganda by the tendency of the society. But this phenomena didn't emerge in recently. In former days, some walls and columns are attached with commercial advertisement and public campaign signs. The multiple ideologies will exist in infrastructure gradually, not for sudden. Accommodate a lot of people, durable, fast transporting, etc. Basically, these original infrastructure layers are exist logistically in all ways. At the same time, there is something appeared in space subconsciously, which are delicately permitted to us as ideologically light, those subtle lightings. So I expect the possibility of that infrastructure with which coexist with the multiple ideology variably. There is no sole ideology, subway being the space that represent the multiple ideologies of not only just the government, but also for the public. Thank you.
Can I ask a question? Is this like showing an image of a floor or a wall? Where were you imagining this new light projection happens?
Sorry, can you ask one?
The last image that you showed, is it
Yes.
like on the floor or is it on like a wall? Because I think people probably don't understand this image.
I make this by using those lights, colors of lights you at the last atlas images, not in just ground or walls. I just stack the colors of the lights in the last image. So want to express that so many colors of that lightings that emphasize those spaces, not for the original infrastructure. So there is no sole ideologies and so much typologies are attached and stacked in the subway.
Could you maybe provide us with some hint how this research might be applied, like as an example? How might this research affect some of the decision makings in the future, for example?
You mean how this project means to me or affect my project?
No, I mean, even if you don't proceed further or whatsoever, just because we don't know your project that well, yeah. So I know there are interesting observations, there are interesting nice pictures and typology studies. And I understand there are some stacks of layers of lights are creating some kind of new imageries or typology. I think I kind of understand what you're looking into. Just really want you to maybe give us maybe a thought, like what if this, how will this research can be utilized? So maybe because of this, maybe you can maybe use this might be fit into some lighting design in the subway, or like I don't know too much about this. That's why just help me to imagine how this can be useful. Maybe it's a stupid question.
But I mean, I think it's actually better to comment or critique on her observation, because our agenda was actually, gaining this perspective of, observing the city or the typology. So, I mean, and we didn't really, demand students to, have a proposal per se.
Yeah, I
So,
understand. Yeah, but since there has been already some time spent, yeah, I don't know if, or maybe you can maybe help me to answer. Or it's okay to skip this if you don't.
I mean, we can't explain how we can make utility for these projects, because our agenda is not for that. Because our agenda is just to observation and create arguments in short time, and we discuss about Seoul. That's it.
Yeah, I know. I understand. Yeah, it's because maybe it's a lack of my understanding of this unit's agenda, and like it's just difficult to understand. So maybe just for maybe I'm asking. Yeah, I'm asking a very stupid question. Yeah.
No, I mean, I don't think you. I don't think you are.
I'm just saying. Yeah.
Just to maybe we can, kind of get into the context to open up a discussion. And I mean, Sumin can also just, pick up on whatever, you I don't know, like you liked or you didn't really agree with, certain parts of the observation. Maybe is that I think I don't know, the way I understood now is a bit different from the workshop through this presentation. Minji, is that, I mean, what happens above ground, and why do we tend to see more governmental regimes or the promotions below ground? It's perhaps because, the big portion of the delegation in like desire manifesting, or what you are calling as the propaganda, has been already taken by private sectors above the ground, and there is no like like a standing opportunity for like the governmental agendas to be there. So it all kind of moved down to below ground, but embraced with the new type of infrastructure, like as you're describing, like which definitely moved on. I mean, maybe Minji, this image is way too conceptual for people to have a debate on. So maybe it's better to put the image before this. And can you change the page to the previous page? Or even before that, yeah, the observation part. I mean, as we can see, like the word smart city is just, arising, and, we're kind of, embracing this new aesthetics of neon lights and, the future within the command of the efficient infrastructure. And like why is that, and what is it, and like is is it making us feel really comfortable about it, or actually is quite daunting? Like I think that's the kind of debate that we want to have, like this new movement that's happening and we can observe in our immediate adjacency of everyday life, and what we are actually just subconsciously receiving every day. I mean, I thought that's what you are trying to question, Minji, and whether there is any like a critique on the smart city, and potentially you think that there's a layer of control, then we can really debate on it. Like, then how should it be used? I mean, should a space ever be used for ideology imposition? Like, can it be constructed by multiple agencies, such as the inhabitants, in this case, the passengers? Like, I don't know. I think that's what we can, open up as a discussion, no? Potentially, I don't know. I'm just throwing one.
Yeah,
I think in a way, I think Minji better to say about what is your statement or critiques on the project. Could you summarize that things one more time?
What I want to talk about this project?
Yes, or what did you make a statement or the critique of the site, critique of the one you found from the city? Could you make a sentence?
I don't know how I understand correctly, but I want to talk about this project is subway, like infrastructure, sort of has very original functions in base, and as time goes by, some additional functions are added into subway. So the subway serve different functions, not only for the logistical functions. Is that right?
So in a way, I think you better to strongly, I think, insist on how the non-logistic one effect on our life, or how the non-logistic things could change our life. Those things are very important, I think, topic or discussion things, I think. So just you can say that, that some part of underground systems is changing differently, like differently maybe from some governmental governing system, right? We can get it, but in a way, I think you have to say what is the potential, or what is the kind of another aspect of the one you found from the site. That's very important. So without those comments, it's very difficult to follow or difficult to discuss at this level. Because we can see the many different types of different things, different objects on the underground or every day in the city. Because I saw the different thing yesterday. So everything different is changing on the underground. So sometimes some bookstore, sometimes some kind of those kind of plant, etc. So what is the meaning of that? What is the meaning of those things happening on the city? By whom? Those things are very important. How to deliver? How we can, I think, make our statement as architect in the city. So without those kind of statement, it's difficult to kind of make a discussion of this project. Yeah, so I think you better
I absolutely agree. Like, I don't think it was very friendly presentation for people to understand easily. So I mean, I don't blame like people who were not able to really discuss over this. But I don't know, like perhaps, since debate is kind of moving towards like, embracement of like the new ideals, such as like the science or technology, like if we had more time, maybe like, you know, because this is also like within Sumin's territory of research. Like what do you think, Sumin, for like, you know, embracing like our culture of absorbing the new technology or creating the newness?
Oh, sorry, I was writing my comments on the chat. Do you mind repeat your question?
Oh no, but it's I mean, maybe it's okay. Because it's not a good question either. I mean I just wanted to, maybe if we had more time, because since we're running out. But this comment is amazing. Sanghyun by Sanghyun So. Like,
Yeah.
I absolutely loved it. And actually this is like reviewing perhaps the, you know, the last image.
Sanghyun, do you want to say something?
Yeah, sure.
He's here. Sorry, I didn't even notice that you're you're here.
Yeah, so if I explain myself a little better, for me, this project is very much an installation project. So there is a lot of this information that we see on the subway, and then, you know, subway in let's say New York, subway in Korea, subway in Japan, they all use a different color scheme, it has a different kind of feel, and then the logo design and the color schemes that they're using for these, like all the, you know, different types of stuff, it's becoming part of this like a landscape. Like, so you accept it as a kind of a feeling from that specific area, not by the everyone, you know, every like signage or every like advertisement. It's about that feel. Like, you get this feel, and then I think that what Minji was doing at the end was that the overlay of these like the phenomenological structure, so that it becomes this like a representation of that. Like, I don't know, if it's specifically targeting certain area, for example, I don't know, Gangnam Station or the I don't know, Gwangnam Station, they will look probably very different. So for me, that was very powerful, artistic expression of how one region could become this like a color. So I thought that part was very beautiful, but I don't know how this could be applied to spatial design.
I think these are exactly, yeah, what we'd like to investigate further. I mean, I think Minji, I think you could have been a bit more brave and straightforward when you're making a statement about what is your position or proposition or feeling, or at least about it. So basically, we're talking about an overflowing of advertisement, propaganda, whatever you call it, and then you extracted those bits as schemes of color, which I thought it was beautiful approach. And then you just overlay everything, which becomes in the end just gray, you know, as if nice being overlaid, it just becomes something really boring. And yeah, as you stated, as we all knew, as we all thought, you know, as no matter how pop the colors are, how strong they are as an advertisement as their own, when they're all overflowing in our public realm or in our city as a landscape, whatever it's called, it just becomes something not popping up anymore. And for you, I think you could have been more direct and more honest and a bit more showing what your position towards that. Do you think this is going against what was meant to be driven by the propaganda, or is there something opportunity you find as or I mean, I think you could have been more, let's say, less polite, or maybe just give a bit of more strong statement of what was your, let's say, you know, position towards this overflowing of propaganda, as it so to speak. Yeah, but in the end, I think the presentation, as James said, it was way too conceptual. But at the same time, I quite like the conceptuality of it as well. So yes, it's double-sided as nice as well, I think. As a work, as a project, there's a huge potential and huge achievement already, I found. At the same time, yeah.
But I mean, the the danger is that if you present in like really conceptual way, it becomes the debates or the discourse becomes super esoteric.
Yeah.
So it's that's the danger. So I
Let's
think
say-
it's better to be just completely direct, actually,
Yeah.
as Jaewon recommended.
Maybe it's just with some way of making an example. But when you are having a meeting with 공무원 who designs a subway station, and you try to convince them with your position, and they're never going to understand this overlaid collage issue. I mean, it's such a stupid example, but it's just the way that you make your statement based on your understanding of those, let's say, the world that you found. At least for the way to describe it and making a statement, I think it could be more straightforward and more honest and brave as well. And then we can discuss about it, whether we disagree or we agree. And that's up to discussions. And that's actually such a hugely interesting and fascinating conversation that we can have.
Yeah, I mean, just as a closing comment is, I mean, what I really appreciated from Sang-hyun's comment was there is a potential, even from the most like a commercial technique. It's it has materiality, it has the look and feel, and I mean, that tool can be a moment of subversion. Depends on how you actually take on. And like this image, for example, I mean, for me, it's super nihilistic because, it reminds me of the syncretism, which embraces so many symbols from like, different religious belief or the gods or the symbolism. And because there are too many, it just doesn't become a one-liner, like a meaning or like a one value. Like it becomes almost like a non-belief system. So, I mean, in that sense, like when we can kind of encounter a moment of overlays of, many ideologies that's expressed in, certain material medium like lighting. And, that's why I was asking whether this is floor or the wall, like, if you just walk past the subway and then you see a moment of like overlays of lights or no lights, then that's the moment when you become sober. Like you are away from this like the drunken condition from like all like soaked ideologies with your experience. So I think you probably don't even need to design anything, actually. Having that awareness and having that observation already, like problematize what's happening, and lets you imagine whether there can be any alternative condition to this. And like that doesn't necessarily meaning inventing something completely new. So yeah, I mean, I think it's great. Well done.
So I want to have one more closing comment as well. So I think it's gonna be really good conversation topic on today. I think what could be the proposal, what could be the observation or research in the workshop. So I think we gonna maybe the meaning of proposal is different on different units. So maybe we gonna discuss on what kind of achievement or what kind of proposal, what kind of output will be the suitable or will be the some kind of not suitable, but what is differentiation from different units as a proposal level. So for the was a very short workshop because our workshop all the time 7 or 8 days. So we all really need to be very focused on what we want to really make an experiment. So I think it's gonna be a very important topic for the discussion, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Minji. I mean, is this time to wrap up our unit? Yes, perfect. Thank you very much, Minji and Chinky.
Very much, Unit 1. So shall we directly move on to the Unit 2, and then after that, like we can have a long lunch break session. So Unit 2.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
now it's your time.
I'll show a video first, to some already you've seen, and then I'll show some of like students' project.
Do you have sound?
Yeah, I have sound, but it like actually it doesn't matter. It's just a noise. Yeah. Can you hear me? So this time I've already like explained brief quite many times, so I'll just skip all and show you some project of our student. So unit 2 is interested in bigness and which represent gathering. And we want to focus on the form of architecture that can change the rule. So student analyzed unbuilt project, which mostly was like megastructure, and propose a new type of form and program in Seoul for the post-COVID world. And in this step, I asked students to produce a single drawing and a single collage image that present the core idea. So today I will show these drawings and images by unit 2. So Hajin studied Church by Luis Bolle and proposed a Gwanghwamun square filled with a number of columns, which is criticizing the role of plaza. Hyun-sung analyzed Symmetry by Antonio Monestroli and proposed outdoor Korea sauna, which exists as a part of Han River Park. Jungmin chose a plaza proposed by Sana and designed a mountain at the center of Seoul, where the area with a lot of political issues. Yusuf studied giant dome of Hitler and turned into a floating concert hall in the sky of Seoul. Eunyoung chose a theater by Sana, which was the only built project in our unit, and designed a kindergarten with extremely low ceiling that only children can enter. Do-hyun studied Border Crossing by Office KGDVS and surround Seoul with giant wall. So block all the people enter the Seoul. Instead, that has like beautiful courtyard for quarantine. So it was quarantine center. So have to get here to go into Seoul. Gyeongmin analyzed Entertainment Palace by Michael Webb and proposed drive-through shopping mall from Seoul Station to City Hall. Jeongjae chose Saitama Arena by OMA and designed underground sunken prison. Ihui studied high-rise homes by James Wines and proposed a skeleton hotel that doesn't have any hotel room. Ji-yoon studied Suburban Set by Ron Heron and proposed a romantic giant billboard on the Han River. Sang-yun chose Church by Junya Ishigami and designed outdoor nightclub for gay at the center of Gangnam district. Hojun analyzed Fun Palace by Cedric Price and proposed a new type of working platform with moveover staircases. So last time, Hojun, Hajin, and Jeongjae present, and this time, Gyeongmin and Ji-yoon will present their work. So these are 12 drawings with 12 ideas. And we thought all of this drawing can act as a almost like a language and statement itself. So we want to make it like one kind of style and making like kind of collection. So all of these are like located at the Seoul. So in like my dream, my dream was like just drawing one Seoul, because we're doing all mega structure, and put it in the Seoul and all together can see in one map, but couldn't do. So these are 12 collage image, which represent, themselves. And thank you. So it was too short. So let's start with Gyeongmin. Gyeongmin, are you ready?
Yeah. Sorry. I think I need the time to fix my audio problem. Is it okay to taking time for
Maybe you can start with Ji-yoon's project, maybe.
Yeah, start with Ji-yoon first.
Can you hear my voice?
Yes.
Okay. Hi, my name is Jiunon from Unit 2. I will start my presentation about a single billboard for 10,000 people. The spread of COVID-19 has created restrictions on overseas travel and made it impossible to move freely. In addition, activities such as theaters, movie theaters, and amusement parks around the world have become difficult. The space where people can break away from their repeated daily lives and give fantasies has been closed. When overseas travel was banned, people turned to domestic travel, and the number of domestic travelers increased. In other words, as people cannot enjoy leisure time that can escape from boring daily life, so they constantly seek a new environment. In the case of Seoul, where we live, there is not enough space to escape our daily lives in the same environment as in a dense city. So I thought people needed a fantasy space to break away from their boring daily lives. So based on this, I would like to present a new architectural proposal. Historically, a representative example of fantasy space is a theater. In theaters, we experience fantasy through the stage. This fantasy space may be indoor, outdoor, imaginary, or realistic. The stage itself is a variable device that allows the audience to cross over fantasy and reality without time and space constraints. From ancient Greece to modern times, theaters and stages have changed in various forms. This change eventually focused on the background. The background that exists as nature was replaced by an artificial stage set, and in modern times, it has led to a video that can be constantly changed. So I researched to provide various experiences through billboard in the suburban set project of Ron Heron. For the 3 residents, architects, campers, and pilots, Ron Heron each showed the environment they wanted to live in through billboard. Theoretical, Ron Heron's project looks like the same house outside, but if you look inside, it shows the transition of space that can be experienced according to the billboard. This is similar to the stage equipment of the theater mentioned earlier. So I would like to propose a new fantasy by treating the 3D space of Seoul as 2D through this billboard. There are 4 gathering types to be applied to this billboard: summer, winter, urban, and nature. By changing the season or changing the density of the city, we intend to give various experiences and fantasies on each billboard in various types that people see through this billboard. Now I will show you the projects I worked on so far. Looking at the urban landscape of Seoul, I erased the Green Mountain. What experience can people have in this space when they erase part of this nature from the city and put different gathering type into the landscape? Even though look at the same city through a different billboard, people feel different as if they are traveling, not boring and repetitive daily lives. And I made various billboards to create this space. How do people react when they erase the mountains and cities and leave only the cities around Namsan Mountain, and when different gathering types are applied? In addition, what if it was a city, not a mountain in the background? What's the background where only a part of it was just a mountain? What can we experience when we put the theme of a dense city in Seoul, or when we add the theme of opposite nature? The project was carried out so that people could have different experiences through the billboard, even if they look at the same city. So looking at the city of Seoul, I erased nature, erased the sky, erased nature and sky at the same time, left Namsan Mountain in the center of Seoul, made a path, and created a variety of perspectives through the billboard. So I suggest an amusement park as a new program. In the post-COVID-19 era, it is suggested to have an amusement park without attractions as a different play area. Instead of attractions, it proposes the fantasy space through various billboards. As a park suitable for the post-COVID-19 era, creating a unique space with a specific theme to provide people with an unusual space. I'd like to propose an unusual cultural space suitable for the post-COVID-19 era that can give new fantasies to visitors through various stories and directing according to the theme. So I want to present a vacation called Fantasy to Seoul citizens who are tired of their daily lives. Yes, thank you.
Jael, how do you want to organize? Do you want comments after for each student, or you want to have both
Yeah, maybe
students?
it's better to have each student.
Each
and
student?
then, yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah, well, do you want to start, James?
Go ahead.
No, I'll be short. I mean, I think this is really, I really enjoyed your presentation and your work. And then I still cannot believe you've done it in 8 days before. I just wanted to ask question first. So the white blank, is that the other side of this billboard, or is it just an abstract drawing show your idea of billboard first? I mean, just to clarify that.
So you mean like just
Yeah, you had a city aerial photos with white blank. You just collaged in. Is that an abstract representation of what you are doing, or is that the view from the other? What is the white here? Just to clarify, I mean, I'm just so that I don't really misunderstand your proposal. So what are the white here? Is it a other side of the billboard, or is it just an abstract marking of your billboard?
Is it right that I understand your question? But like, you mean like it's just, so why I choose this space of billboard? You mean like
No, I think
blank?
just never mind. I think I just know the answer. I mean, it's just a so you just marked the billboards with white
Yes.
blank on these images, right? And it doesn't mean necessarily what it shows, right?
It said just the white was the shape of billboard
Yeah,
to
yeah, got it. Okay,
design.
yeah,
and
okay,
the
yeah.
image can be like replaced
Yeah.
in like during the season, or like what she intended.
I mean, I really enjoyed by the fact you totally understood the understanding and perception of building or architecture with how it's been seen visually. I mean, it's it's, as you referred to the situation of COVID, I mean, it's totally what's happening in these days, like people not really seeing each other, not necessarily only because of COVID, but also this broadcasting culture is happening. James must be know more about this more in detail, but basically all these things are happening virtually or online. Is basically you just define the world, define the space, and define the environment, define the way of living thoroughly through the visuals, like through what you see, and you create this. You call it fantasy, but though I don't really think it's fantasy. It's just actually what it is nowadays. It's just an exaggerated version of what we experience, but I don't think it's fantasy in our days nowadays. So I really enjoyed the way you just interpret this architecture in a really straightforward and direct manner, and just create a room, like as Jae-hyuk referred, as a giant room. Have you imagined of possibilities of not just being, let's say, you just talked about amusement, but which is more, let's say, entertaining and this leisure or imagery of nature, which is kind of our kind of leisure-based visuals and images. But have you thought of any alternative or any other types of images that we are now familiar with and can actually, let's say, give people another impression, basically, like not only putting a nature, mountains, and leisure-related image and visuals. Can it be anything else? I mean, I think that I would be quite interested to hear what you can imagine as a possible image that you can think of, not just a theme park, because in a way, a theme park is quite, it's easy to imagine. But to go beyond that kind of already quite common fantasy that we do have these days, what can you imagine of this as a potential image with this giant billboard that you can create for the visitors or citizens and so on? I mean, that would be quite interesting to hear.
Should I add more, or should we wait for Jiyun to respond?
So like other than theme park, you mean like?
Yes. I mean, you don't have to answer. I mean, it's just it was a comment as well. I mean,
okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it'd be also interesting to hear what you think. Let's say not just theme park, or which is also really interesting to see, but it could be something else. Like even more common and mundane everyday life could be made as an image, as a massive image. Like for instance, the movie that you showed, the Truman Show, that is something. It's not about leisure or, let's say, made up. Let's say fantasy. It's really mundane everyday lives they created within the set. Also, there's another movie like Synecdoche, New York. It's pretty completely curated everyday life, mundane everyday life. There could be something. I mean, so basically, I just wanted to ask and comment on this could be something else, not just something we see it as a really fun thing. It could be something more mundane, based on everyday life, or it could be something else even, or even something that doesn't even exist in our life. But I mean, you don't have to feel being forced to answer, but I really enjoyed the presentation. Thank you. So
okay,
yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I mean, if I add up, I really enjoyed it too. Thank you very much, and it's a lot of work for 8 days, so we really appreciate it. And of course, like before getting into the commendation of the project, I wanted to, like, maybe perhaps critique and question several layers, and which I find it really unnecessary and confusing to a degree, is that I think this COVID narrative, is there any reasoning behind why I mean, like, I presume polemical layer, but why was it necessary to introduce that?
Maybe I
And
can.
another,
It's better to
yeah.
answer from me, like, because in fact, our unit is really doesn't matter with COVID situation. That's true. But why we wanted to choose like COVID situation to help student to some build their like program, because like what we trying to do was like, in fact, it's not that, because we start from the form shape, so program was like following after. So in that steps, like student was like a little bit more easy to find some of like programmatic situation of the COVID and then bring it to the like connect it to develop. So like amusement park, if I think that is like, it's also not that, I agree with Jungwon, and like it's kind of like it can be other things and developed more. So, yeah, like James can continue.
Yeah, I mean, it's just that I don't know. I mean, there are certain elements that I thought is just distracting the core value of the project. I mean, that was one, and another thing was like introduction of Greek police, which is, you know, there to be the political space. And when the project advocates for fantasy making, which is the complete depoliticization, I just didn't understand the, you know, marriage between these like cross-referencing. So like you know, those are some things that I find it very confusing. But other than that, the value that I, you know, highly admire from this project is that, you know, way we can review the city, you know, just by juxtaposing the image, and then I think what the project could have been really amazing is, you know, like just revealing the polemic layer of it. You know, like what does it trigger? Of course, there's a reason why you chose, you know, the leisure as a program, because it's the opposite of what, you know, cities made for. You know, the non-productive landscape is, you know, it's great. It makes sense, but of course, that kind of feeds directly to the productiveness of the city. But you know, then, you know, if to be able to place ourselves outside of this debates of, you know, leisure and tied to the, you know, city's desire and efficiency and distraction and fantasy making, depoliticization is actually, you know, coming up with the new usage of the city through this new you know, composed image that you actually created, Jian. So I think like what could have been really amazing for me is to see certain, you know, masking and, you know, the superimposition of the, you know, different landscape that coexists with the city, but, you know, within the different location, totally unexpected leisure form arises because of the image. So actually, if you could envision certain, you know, behavioral form in front of the billboard, not people not treating as you know, billboard to just take photo, but they actually genuinely feel comfortable enough to do something else and, you know, make a new invention of the city, you know, the use value of the city. So I think, you know, but it already brought that possibility, you know, with these images. Maybe perhaps it's too vulgar to, or too direct to actually, you know, propose or impose certain vision or the image. That's why you avoided, you know, describing that. But I thought, you know, it's actually okay to, you know, elaborate on why I chose the word leisure and what kind of new value that the project can offer to the city. It can be spoken out loudly, I think. So, I mean, it's the same critique that we got for our own students. So, you know, I think we're all kind of learning the, you know, the, you know, power of directness in, you know, sending the message. But anyway, I thought it's super amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, so should we move on to
I mean, I have
Kyungmin?
one more critique. Sorry. Why do you think city needs a fantasy space?
What I think is,
Because I absolutely hated that statement. Because I completely disagree. Go ahead.
yeah, I will move on to next.
No, Jin.
Yes.
Why do you need fantasy space in city? That
Oh,
was the
so
question. Yeah.
okay. So what I think is, it's too boring if we look at the just Seoul City. Like what I feel like, it's just like same environment, same buildings and same apartments. So yeah, that's why I think it's boring. So I want to change the like what I look to the city. So what I apply. So that's why I think that's my answer. Yeah.
Thank you. I think it's quite fit. That idea was quite fitted our unit. We want to bring some childish and aggressive idea to see possibility of new type. Yeah, Kyungmin, are you?
I think it's amazing.
Kyungmin, are you ready?
Completely disagree, but we can talk about this later.
I mean, who doesn't like Las Vegas?
Oh, I absolutely hate it.
Oh yeah.
But I love it. I love it at the same time. So yeah, I see the point.
Thank you, June.
Thank you.
Let's move on.
Can you hear me without echo?
Yeah, it's nice.
Yeah, okay. Drive-thru is a type of takeout service provided by a business that allows customers to purchase products without leaving their car. Before it is common, there has been driving system. Driving allow cars to park next to each other. The food is generally brought to the window by a server, and the customer can remain in the parked car to eat. As the demand for this effective and fast service increased, driving concept evolved in various ways. The first drive-thru opened in 1947 in Virginia, Hamburg, on Springfield Route 66, Missouri, USA, situated on Route 66, the first transcontinental highway in the United States. The store quickly became a local specialty. The system, with the convenience of staying in their car and quick ordering and delivery of goods, was appropriate for the current situation in which cars are common. The system has been applied to a wider range of stores and is currently in operation in approximately 100,000 locations worldwide. Since the pandemic situation, people have come to avoid being close to each other or coming into contact with each other for safety. The drive-thru usage rate increased, and the car became more of a personal space than a means of transportation. Therefore, the space of the car is no longer a place to stay for a while, but a space as a living space. Also, as social distancing made it impossible for people to contact each other in person, so people began to join events by car, like COVID test, wedding, funeral, music festival, cinema, and so on. Even in some parts of the United States, voting for the 2020 presidential election was conducted as a drive-thru. Maybe we already knew that there is a possibility that the gathering of people can be replaced by the gathering of the car. So I propose car is becoming new gathering type nowadays. I looked into the entertainment palace or work designed based on a car. The entertainment palace, also known as the Scene Center, is Michael Webb's student proposal. Michael Webb is a British architect and was one of the members of the Archigram. The Entertainment Palace is a drive-in entertainment complex located on Leicester Square in London. It has long ramps that allow cars to drive through the entire building. It was an attempt to bring together separate elements of pedestrian and cars with inclined plates that form a winding ramp system. The Entertainment Palace consists of a bowling alley, theater, coffee bars, dance areas, and office space. The spaces are designed to allow for easy circulating around the facility. So I thought the key elements in this project are car, human, and ramp. Cars and human are approached by ramps and escalators respectively, and the spaces in between are filled. Surprisingly, these spaces are all inclined ramp, and slabs of various shapes are attached based on this. The slabs are tuned to the slope of the ramp, so you can see all the slabs have a slope. The ramp has an inclination and a turning radius. It was found that the degree of car movement and the viewing angle change according to the inclination of the ramp. Depending on the basic turning radius of the ramp, the speed and viewing angle change. When the basic turning radius distorted, there are inflection points which I thought of as a moment that required a stop. The types of gatherings created in this way gather together to form a new overpass. However, this is not for vehicle traffic. This is for pleasure. It connects Seoul Station and City Hall, places with a lot of traffic in Seoul. And types of gathering are connected with various programs. So you can enjoy and experience many programs with different inclination. In a situation where there is a lot of damage due to COVID virus in shopping malls, I thought that a car could solve this as a shelter and new type of gathering. As a result, I thought a department store offering a variety of experiences was suitable for new gathering of car. So people ride a car and gather together in this department ramp, a single ramp for 10,000 people. This is a plan. A single ramp does not require the straight line because all the space is for enjoyment. Also, since it is made up of different rotation angles and viewpoints, it ovals in various width and angle. As they pass through the tunnel, people can look at the menu, order something, receive a product, or browse the display case, or simply pass by. You can just sit in the car and do what you want to do in your own space without having to contact anyone in person. Also, people can get together with their car and go camping just looking at the scenery. All this in one ramp. So with COVID world, people in the car create many experiences and activities safely and comfortably on this single ramp. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Kyungmin. I think I'm gonna be very honest. Like I think I'm in this feeling of, you know, super concerned and but also, you know, oh, why not? And you know, why do I assume too much? Maybe it's my condition, but I mean, I have my way to advocate for that, which will come into later discussion, I think. I think it reminds me of the work of Animali Domesti. I think they're really hot in Instagram at the moment. You know, like these guys, they're architects, but they design inhabitants for insects, like it's a really small animal. And you know, humans are the only species who has the capacity to actually, you know, design the building, like, and you know, plan beforehand. Like I think the closest thing probably is like a, you know, beaver, but even they don't really design, do they? So I think there are like conditions that we assume in, like, you know, urbanism, that how to live, and especially the infrastructural systems. You know, it's set by such harsh like protocols, and it has a strong form factor. And I think, you know, what this kind of brings as a question, I mean, if it's being used as a tool for provocation, you've succeeded really well as a project, because it's as if we are like trying to accommodate a giant species into the city. Like your arms and legs are like replaced by wheels and completely tied to automobile. And you know, if that animal has to meander through the city, like what could it be? And if that animal has to really fulfill the need of pleasure, what would it be? I think you know, this is kind of proposing you know, that kind of vision, as in, you know, like it may seem very useless to design for like a little insect house that they didn't really ask for, but it does really question a lot of, you know, things by just, you know, process of doing it. So I strongly value that. But again, if everything stays in an implicit level, and you know, if you have to defend your project with the ambiguity of the set brief by your tutors, I think it's like, I mean, first of all, not good. and I mean, because no one will understand. There is only one way of like observing your project, which is like, you know, I have to completely appropriate it or interpret it in my own way and give intellectual value. So it's very hard to critique on it. And the other thing that I want to critique, but not to your work, Kyungmin, but more to do with, you know, like Jiyeon's attitude on her project also, is that I highly value the adolescent character of the, you know, the new citizen as a new, like a species per se. However, I think just assuming this crazy fun factor or like fascination to the city or the innovation, and like without questioning why we are so drawn to it, I think it's highly problematic. Therefore, I think we really have to be polemic through these projects. Otherwise, you know, we just get into like same shithole like over and over again. Like, I mean, we're not, I think we cannot be the agency of, you know, spectacle creation. So I mean, and I think the unit and the work that's been presented today is in borderline of that realm. So this is something that I'll be like super cautious, and I wouldn't leave it, you know, behind the layer of the ambiguity. So yeah, and I strongly believe that you do have like, I mean, like tutors and the, you know, students, I think they have really good intent and, you know, of having the sharp critique of and reviewing of the city. So it just needs to be more explicit in the presentation and the production of the work, I think, and brief setting up too. But this wasn't directed towards to you students, so it's a bit of an unfair comment. But so thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, I do have a slight different point of view, particularly when I was listening to this presentation. Thank you very much, Kyungmin. When you talked about these ramps and curves as a tool that defines the people's way of acting or behaving or doing anything, that was for me quite interesting. As a designer, you kind of put a tool, you just place the tool to design, and in that sense, even without polemic, let's say, that talks about the city or the way of living, it could just simply about the tool for designing. In that sense, what I feel a bit lack of from your presentation was the use of that understanding of curves and ramp as a tool for design. For instance, your scheme has 2 points, starting point and destination, endpoint, A to B. And though it's quite curved, it's still quite linear. You go from one point to another, and that's the path that you go through. But if you were to describe these ramp and curves, this kind of architectural gesture that you made as a tool for design, I think could be more varied, so that you could talk about many different way of acting or behaving through these parameters that you've placed. It could be more. Sometimes in the end, it's mega structure, but you can talk about many different way of position, or there's the places or places in a project that is not necessarily linear. That for me, though I was quite interested in your understanding and your decisions to use this as your tool, the actual project in terms of how it came out to be was quite too, let's say, linear for me. So seeing more of your test on using those curves and ramps and degree of the path, not necessarily as a linear circulation, but more as a kind of world that you create as a form of structure, would probably be more, for me, would have been more helpful and also interesting to look at as a project. But in the end, I think I've understood your intention and your direction. I thought it was quite simple but quite interesting approach, I think. In that sense, I mean, it's as James said, I mean, not as James said, I do have a slightly different perspective in this project, actually. Yeah.
But can I add on to okay, let's discuss about this image.
Yeah.
Like, is it really different from what we know as a drive-through? And is it really pleasure? So is it really pleasure seeking? And is it really achieving that so well? I mean, I think that's like the fundamental question that we have to answer. Like, why do you replicate certain elements? Because if you had all freedom, and your brief actually allows you to do that, like, what about the pleasure that this, like, the vehicle drivers will get, like, with the new platform to really enjoy their driving and living together? Like, is directionality a matter of concern? Did your like a ramp design analogy really make sense to associate it with the pleasure? I mean, or like, is the speed really like limiting, like, because you're like designing according to the speed, but then like, isn't speed one of the factor that you can actually enhance the pleasure? I think these kind of questions like can be seriously addressed and actually arrive to a certain form factor, which is completely different from the way we perceive the normal, like, the road design per se.
Yes,
I,
I
I,
think.
yeah.
Can I?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, I want to say one more. I want to add some comments for the conversation, actually. I think the project has kind of interesting potential because the drive-through as a different typology could be evolved in the city. That's interesting, I think. But the way you're putting on the linear types of structure on top of the city, it makes very serious conversation makes, actually. Because designing different layers of a city is quite different quality of what you want to try to do. So in a way, I think because drive-through could maybe insert into the city, you know, using existing street, existing road, making different big spot, etc. If you want to make us right that way, so you have to maybe address what is the benefit, what is different quality, what is the quality or developing your driving through idea out of this proposal. Yeah. So because this proposal is just looking at the one kind of different levels of a city, so making different street rather than make a little park itself. Because I understand because it has 8 days, you know, and then we have to deliver some kind of mega structure project, you know, in the city. That's kind of one of the kind of vision you can try to make those kind of images, but you know, making different linear types of long street makes some kind of confusion, not confusion, but some kind of questioning things for me.
To add on James's comment, I think speed matters. I don't know if you drive, James. I think speed matters in terms of what you experience. As Jaewon just said, what could have been more interesting to look at was how the speed defined by what you've created, the ramp or curve, whatever that is reflecting or reacting or having conversation with the actual city. So if you are, so depending on what you are next to, that is being reflected to your design, which eventually becomes new forms or different types of ramp or curve. That was my thought when I was listening. The idea is understood, but the way that you've made it as a proposal, being a linear drive-through, for me was slightly could be better, more developed and dig more into and be more studied and investigated. But still, but I enjoyed it. It's just one linear path, and that as well. At the same time, as Jim pointed out, it's just adding a new layer above the city is a totally different approach than creating a path within the cities and reflecting and responding to what's around it. So.
Yeah, I agree with all of you guys. Like, what I thought is like, I kind of couldn't get convinced by all the analyses Kyungmin did about the curvature or angle, like those things. In fact, it's really, I think it doesn't matter, and it doesn't fit with the program, in fact. But what I got hints from her research was like trying to understand scale of the car is a like really core idea of this project. So starting approach is already kind of fine for me at that point, because it was like 8 days project. So this project is more about like questioning, how about designing building for car? I think that's like it for like 1 week, because like, for example, if you see this collage, there is like series of marble arch and then like passing through, and it can be replaced with some kind of layer as well, and it can be like developed in so many different ways. So I think this is like really kind of first step to questioning about like car itself. So I think Kyungmin did quite well in that point of view.
Yes, I think this project raises very interesting question about the unit 2 as well, because gathering with a car is very important factor of the city, which is very good question for this project. So I think, so in a way, I think for the unit 2, I really enjoyed the unit 2 project so far. And then I'm just wondering, the meaning of gathering should be addressed the end of the presentation, I hope, for the unit 2, because gathering, I think the meaning of gathering all the time, we can decide, different size of space or people or events or some kind of intensity, etc. So the meaning of gathering is, I really want to listen from the all different projects of unit 2. Later on, maybe. Thank you.
But I mean, sorry, it's just like I agreed up to the last part that J-Hub described the project. Like, I think, yeah, for sure. Like we all can appreciate the scalar experimentation. But our city is already designed for the car, and it's actually quite dominantly designed by the car, and the buildings almost come afterwards without really changing the road much. And like, is this, unless this is actually being used only as a polemic or the provocational tool of image making, like I think like the reality question is like, how can we, like rather than introducing this giant American scale monster into the middle of the city, like in this way, like what is actually like a real serious way of allowing different usage of our like roads, for example, without having like new building types. I think that could be even more like a serious debates that we can have through these images. But then if these images actually, I mean, to be able to do that, I think this like a pleasure layer is like the only like a bargaining deal for this project, I think. But then if it doesn't seek for enough pleasure forms, and like I'm afraid that we see a lot of like repeated conventionalized techniques in these images. So I think it could have been even more fun. That's all like I want to really critique. You could have gone like much more crazy than like staying at like kind of middle ground of status quo. Like, oh, is it actually going to be in the city? Like, cause like it's very daunting. Like if you like confront in that way. So anyway, but I think this discussion is super healthy. Like already we're having very interesting like topical issues.
Yeah, I mean, if I can add, like, just because, I mean, I quite agree with James's last comments, like, because this can be more, could be much more crazier for sure. And then like, because at the beginning, I pretty much like this project because it reminds me like kind of like Highline or like maybe Solo. Well, I don't like Solo too much, but but I mean, it's like the Highline or Solo for cars, I guess, like the scaling up idea, like just like those kind of Highline park. And just for the cars rather than people. That's why I like this project. But I mean, in the same way, but in the same time, like I was thinking that, I mean, I think this is the same problem of Kyungmin's work and Ji-yoon's work as well, because I was thinking that most of both of your design is kind of like stayed in just two-dimensional work. That's what I want to say, because the board was like only stayed in the two-dimensional walls, and then there's, I mean, I wish it like if there is some like viewpoint from the like perspective view, like from the Ji-yoon's project as well. And this one is like the while you are trying to make the kind of very fun like places, but however it only stays with just very linear, like one linear surface on top of the city. Like, yeah, that's why I was thinking that it could be more fun, like James said.
Well, I think having said all that, I really appreciated the amount of work, yeah, and the amount of analysis and the rigor, and from the history of the drive-throughs, and then you also had a lot of analysis of the ramp and radiuses. I was quite amazed, like that it's actually done within this short amount of time. So yeah, congratulations. Yeah, and this conversation is very helpful, and we can talk about it because you have all these contents you laid out on the table. So yeah, it's great.
Thank you, Kyungmin. So unit 2 is done for now. Yeah.
Great. Thank you so much. Yeah, for both units. Yeah, and the 4 students and our 5 tutors. Yeah, really well done. And thank you everybody for the great discussion. Yeah, I have learned a lot, and yeah, it has been very thoughtful experience for me, and I believe for everybody. Yeah, and we are going to have a lunch break, and we are gonna come back at 2. Is that okay in 45 minutes? Yeah.
I don't think so. I think they need 1 hour, because if you think about the yesterday, like I was thinking that 45 minutes not that enough. So
Yeah, but I think
Yeah.
we also London and New York is yeah, it's getting late. So we
late,
don't want to
yeah.
drag too late. So maybe yeah, we can just maybe start at on time.
Yes.
Yeah, yeah.
It's
I
1 o'clock in Korean time, so in 45 minutes.
Yeah, in 45 minutes, 2 o'clock at yeah, we start at 2 o'clock.
No,
Korean
1.
time.
1
Oh, 1
o'clock.
o'clock? Oh, sorry.
1 o'clock in Korea.
Is it
yeah.
12:50 now? Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Yeah, 1 o'clock. Yeah, so in 45 minutes. Okay, see you everybody.
All right.
Sorry,
James.
I unfortunately
Yeah.
have to leave.
You need to leave. Yeah,
but
yeah.
Thank you very much for having us. Yeah.
Thank you for joining
Thank you,
us.
James.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Speak
very much.
soon.
Thank you.
And I have to dash out as well. Thank you very much for tonight.
Thank
It was really
you.
good
Thank
to see
you.
See you around.
Well done. Thank you.
Someone says so cold.